And this is so lovely. It's so nice to see so many of you here. I'm Sophie Ellis-Bextor. I'm a singer and songwriter who's had the great pleasure of writing songs and working with Jon. So when I was approached about talking to Jon Shave today, I wanted to do it because as a singer, when you go to do a songwriting session, and I've written with so many people, Jon is exactly who you hope to find waiting for you. He's warm, he's relaxed, he's talented, creative, musical, and we've had so much fun writing together. You've also had so much success. You've been working as a producer and a writer for over 20 years now. And I think it's really lovely that, so we're in this beautiful BFI IMAX where you can usually see incredible films, but I've always wondered what it would look like with a giant Logic file up there. And isn't it beautiful? So this is a really lovely way to walk through your process and give a little insight into how you work, because you're going to take us through 3 songs, and they're at different stages in your career. So going back to the days with Xenomania, which is really early on. So why don't we start off by talking about what was going on with your work and production and songwriting when you joined Xenomania?
Sure, yeah. Well, it was obviously right at the beginning of my career, and I kind of had a sort of odd route into there in that I'd been really sort of desperate to become a songwriter and producer from about the age of 12. And but I grew up outside of London. I didn't really have any contacts. I kind of didn't have a plan of how I was going to get there. I went a slightly strange route in that I actually ended up getting an office job in a music law firm where I became a secretary and spent 18 months kind of working on a secret demo in the background, you know, upon which time I plucked up the courage to play my demo to one of my bosses, who then became really helpful and started introducing me to other producers and other creatives that she felt could help me. One of which was Brian Higgins, who kind of took me under his wing, and I went to work with him for about 4 years. But I'd gone from nothing to suddenly working on bang, 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 records that were coming out. You know, during that 4 years I was there, I think I worked on 20 top 10 singles for Girls Aloud and then other ones for Sugababes, etc. So it was kind of really in at the deep end.
I did hear as well that when you're working for that legal firm, you were also working on producing sort of covers of songs that were successful for someone to then, another client.
So that was actually the first thing I did for about 6 months.
It sounds like quite good training.
It was great training because I was sort of making these sound-alike songs for South African market, because this was pre-digital. And I would be like, right, you have to make an Eminem record, and you have to make it sound exactly the same. Or I did Madonna, Die Another Day, and that for me taught me so much. That actually helped me get through the door at Xenomania, because before that I kind of had blagged it and said, yeah, I know how to use Logic, and I didn't know anything. But by making these sound-alike things, I learnt loads in that 6 months.
And how to sort of mimic some of that amazing production and all those layers and all the things that needed to be there.
Right.
And I understand it, when you started Xenomania, your first day was the same day that they released Sound of the Underground for Girls Aloud.
Yeah.
So when you start working on a Girls Aloud song at that point, you're working with an act that already has quite an established sound. Yeah. So that's a challenge in itself. So this is the show we got here. And what did you want to sort of treat us to with this?
This one, so this is like my first ever release, really. And I had kind of, I was the last one in the door at Xenomania, so I was kind of sort of swamped with like the most menial studio tasks as well. So I used to be the one recording the hours and hours and hours of dictaphone melodies in and chopping them up and comping them and recording all the vocals, all the demo vocals. So when I got time around that, I would be feverishly trying to make backing tracks feed into that system that hopefully would get picked and hopefully would turn into records.
That's crazy that you... So just to explain for people who maybe aren't familiar with Xenomania's method of pop writing, because it is quite a unique space and probably for you an incredible... I don't know how, quite an intense experience, but also something where you sort of hit the ground running and you're part of something that's successful, so it's got that good energy around. But as a singer, I went to do one song with Xenomania, and basically you record as many ideas as you can for what a verse could be, what a pre-chorus could be, chorus, mid-late. And that happens musically and top line as well. And then all of that gets sort of chopped up by, we probably was you at the time, yeah. And then made into a song. So it kind of becomes this sort of beautiful Frankenstein of a song where it's got hooks all over the shop coming from all these different ideas. And I've never worked anywhere else that works that way. And for you as a writer, that must have been quite crazy as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't know anything else at the time. And I also didn't know anything. So it was an amazing, learning experience. You know, it was very competitive as well. You know, you would be trying to sort of compete for these slots on records, you know, and I remember trying to make backing tracks whenever I could, but feeling like, you know, I wasn't necessarily really getting very far with that. And then I remember one afternoon, the legendary Miranda Cooper, who's like the kind of main songwriter.
Yeah, she's brilliant.
She came up to my room and she was like, look, we're not getting anywhere on any of the tracks we've been given today. Could you just like bang out 10 really quick bass lines? And so I was like, yeah, of course. And just literally kind of put down these ideas and took them down on a CDR. And didn't really think anything more of it because I was sort of so used to like nothing really ever happening. And then I remember a few days later, me and Miranda used to get the train to the studio together from London, and she was saying, oh, I've just been doing this lyric that I'm really proud of, and I was like, oh, you know, what was that? And she said, oh, it's shoulda known, shoulda cared, shoulda hung around the kitchen in my underwear, acting like a lady. And I remember we were just giggling about this, and like I just thought how brilliant, you know. But I remember having this pang of like, oh, I wish I could somehow be involved with, you know, a bit of that brilliance that she was bringing, you know. And little did I know, it was actually some of the ideas she'd put on two of the bass lines. And Brian Higgins, who ran the whole operation, had heard these ideas and really liked them. But I'll show you in a second. They were written over 2 different bass lines in different keys. So I'll show you that first.
I like the colours you've chosen in your logic.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the first. And it's just that for like 3 minutes or whatever. And then one of the others, I couldn't find the original file of this because this was literally like 23 years ago. So I've had to kind of like use the stem splitting to get this, but this was the other bass line. The same tempo, which is a very Xenomania tempo of 126.6 BPM.
Come on.
Brian really liked both the bits of top line that Miranda had written on those, and he gave me the job. He was like, right, work out how you can stitch them together. Yeah, this could be one song. So they were in different keys. It's pretty easy to work out.
That doesn't sound easy. It's in different keys.
A couple of semitones different.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of... and then, you know, the thing with this song is, when it was chosen to be a single and then came out, a lot of the press around it was like, it's got 2 choruses. You know, how innovative. But the reason it's got 2 choruses is because it was 2 choruses.
Yes.
Written as separate ideas. Yeah, I remember we had this really rough version of the song that the band had sung down the idea, and there was going to be a playback with their A&R, and they played maybe 5 or 6 rough ideas to him, and he just picked this one and said that's the first single, and that was kind of
awesome.
Yeah.
Did you actually work with Girls Aloud in the room then, or were you in sort of separate spaces? Because I remember at Xenomania it was like different rooms doing different things.
So the way I worked with them, I recorded all their vocals pretty much. But I used to spend hours with them because it wouldn't just be here's a song, record it. It would be here's 27 melody fragments with different lyrics.
You're bringing back memories.
And it would be record them all with 5 different girls, and often they hadn't chosen the key yet either, so it might be up to 5 keys. So I'd be recording all
exactly.
And then I'd have to comp them all and mix them and hand them back. Yeah.
I mean, I've always said about Xenomania, there's method in the madness, but there's definitely a little bit of madness in the method as well. I mean, look what happens there. You get these great pop moments. And I hear as well that Brian Higgins and the way he worked helped you learn on, as a producer, something that I think is so hard, which is when to stop, when to actually sign off on something. Yeah. So I think something that a lot of creatives really struggle with is that bit of going, right, it's done. It's as good as it'll be. So how did he help with that?
Well, I mean, that really was, I think, one of the biggest takeaways when I did end up kind of moving on from there. I suddenly realised I kind of had this kind of knowledge I wouldn't have had otherwise, or this kind of sense of like where the bar is and when something is finished and when it isn't. And I think you only get that through kind of really learning from others and collaborating and really just like going through that process like time after time.
Yeah.
And I remember when I left there, I kind of felt like, actually, you know, as hard as it was, and it was like boot camp at times, I found I could do loads of things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. But that really informed then what I went on to do in terms of setting up my own team. Yeah. And how that was going to work.
Well, that brings us on perfectly to the next song you wanted to play for us, because this is when you've left Xenomania with a production group called The Invisible Men. Yeah. And you've gone from, you know, something the girls Aloud, where they have an established sound, to actually a debut single for someone. So that's a very different skill set when it comes to writing, because you're really helping someone establish who they are and what they want to bring to the world. And it's a Jessie J song, Do It Like a Dude.
Yes.
And as I understand it, when you started working together, she'd already done, is this true, 500 or thereabouts demos?
I think it was. She kind of had this massive CD wallet, and she kind of worked at the time with every, you know, it was kind of Dr. Luke, Timbaland, Red One. It was like 2009, 2010, that kind of time.
Yeah.
She had worked with literally everyone, but had this CD wallet full of songs and demos that no one, not even her, really felt she had her first single.
And I guess part of the issue in a way is that her talent, she could sort of do any which thing.
Yeah.
So what happened when you two worked together, and how did you help her find what her first single would be?
Yeah, I mean, it was a case of when you've kind of, she's got an absolutely phenomenal show-stopping voice. But sometimes, you know, it's a case of when you can sing anything, what should you be singing? Yeah. And kind of, you know, we spent a few weeks in the studio, but kind of started getting the feeling that, you know, she maybe is getting in her own way with that sense of pressure in terms of what's the first thing she's going to come out with. She'd already had this kind of videos on YouTube of her just kind of singing to camera, which had gone massively viral. Mm-hmm. So there was this massive expectation, really. And I could tell she was feeling a lot of pressure. So in the end, we ended up saying, right, tomorrow, you know, when you come in, we're not going to write for you, actually. In fact, at the time, it was, you know, they're looking for Rihanna songs. Let's try and write something for Rihanna. But that was as much an exercise in trying to sort of disconnect that part of her brain where she's really like overthinking or getting in her own way. Yeah. But that's how this song came about ultimately.
Yeah. Well, let's hear some of it, because I think a lot of what's so special about this is how Jessie does showcase her voice and the different ways she approaches singing. Yeah. It's really genius, and it's a clever way to free up your brain if you're a bit stuck in a bit of a you know, sort of holding pattern of writing songs, and it could be that, just to free it up and go, right, now let's write for someone else. What's that?
Totally. I mean, if you're familiar with this song, then, you know, you're kind of, it's pretty much, and the original demo is all really sung in a really character vocal. This is what I mean by that.
I can do it like a brother, do it like a dude, grab my crutch, wear my hat.
So it's like,
drop the beat, nasty face, why you looking at me?
It's a real persona that she, I think the excitement of writing for an artist like Rihanna, it kind of got her into a different headspace, and made her really like have a lot of fun with it, really.
Yeah, it's really characterful.
Yeah. But then, you know, I think there's a case of when you've written a song for someone else, and I think everyone, you know, I certainly felt like this could be an amazing first Jessie single. But I think she had a bit of a journey to go then to kind of really feel like it could be her own song, because she had written it for someone else. And one of her main questions is, you know, I don't sound like this. People need to know that that's not how I actually sound. So we had to kind of go through a process of like, well, where we need to find moments in the record where she can actually sound like herself.
Yeah.
So that kind of started here.
Do it like a brother, do it like a dude.
It's like this kind of mid-late section where that's where the sort of real Jessie voice kind of enters the equation, and then through ad-libbing towards the end.
Do it like a brother, do it like a dude. Low like you.
And it was a bit of a process. I remember we actually tried the chorus.
Do it like a brother, do it like a dude.
Like a much more natural version, but it kind of, that even got sent to mix, that version, but we kind of like, it doesn't have the same bite of the original. So it was a process getting that balance, I think.
Yeah, but what fun, and how great to be able to work with the vocalist who can deliver on all of those versions so that you've got the beauty of choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
That must have been pretty, I mean, I've always wondered actually, when you're writing with someone, how do you create an environment where they do feel they can invest in it like that and actually bring all that stuff out of themselves? I mean, I suppose, does it happen a little bit by stealth? Like, from the moment they enter the environment of your studio, are you starting to try and evoke that relax in them?
I think these days that's absolutely, like, I'd much rather prioritise human connection over everything else, really.
Yeah.
And like, for me nowadays, it's kind of, it's a good day if you've had a 4-hour chat before you've even written any music, and I mean,
I would never do that, but
no.
I'll be like, oh my God, it's 3 p.m. We haven't even started yet.
Yeah, I mean, I find in general the music really benefits from, like, you can hear the personal connection.
Definitely.
In the music,
Yeah, and I think also the best days are where you're on the way home, you're like, oh my word, we wrote a song together, and I really love it, and it's already infused with all that good stuff.
Sure.
Because ultimately you're telling stories, so you need to be in a place where you feel you can suggest things and, all collaborate, and you're not scared of saying something that sounds a bit silly or someone, because it might spur something else.
Yeah.
It's the best feeling. This might be a good opportunity as well to bring Scott into the equation as well, because Jon also has one of the most beautiful cats ever. So I do recommend, if you haven't thought of it, maybe getting a really beautiful cat, because
great icebreaker.
it really is. He's a Maine Coon, and I actually thought about getting a Maine Coon inspired by Scott, but then I realised you need special massive cat flaps, and I was like, a step too far for me, but I appreciate Scott very much. So I don't know if this was conscious with your 3 choices, but with Girls Aloud, they already had a very known sound.
Yeah.
With Jessie, it's someone starting their sound. And then we're moving on to your third clip,
Yes.
Third song, a song that's nominated at the Ivors later this week. Congratulations. It's such a beautiful song. Yeah. And the song is Weeds with the Sugababes. And again, so this is another stage of your career. So this is something where you're not part of a collective anymore. It's you in your own right. But also another stage in their career, because a point where they're a legacy act. They know their sound, but they're also maybe able to toy a little bit with the expectation, safe in the knowledge that people know exactly who the Sugababes are. So tell me a little bit about how this song started, because it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, this one, again, and I don't set out every day trying to write a song for Rihanna, but that was the thinking behind this one as well.
She's such an inspiration, though.
Yeah, I'd actually just had a meeting with her A&R, and I kind of felt like, had a sort of idea forming of the kind of thing we could make. And by this point had a really close, amazing creative partnership with Anya Jones, who is one of my favourite collaborators. And we kind of started texting about this, and she kind of had said, I've got this idea, hang on a second. She said, I've got this idea. She'd seen this image of Rihanna, this. And she said, we could do a song called Weeds. And I was like, that's amazing, because it's such a visceral, kind of interesting word.
Yeah.
And we started having this philosophical conversation about weeds, and who gets to decide what a weed is. Some weeds are really beautiful. It's only because they kind of happen to be growing where we don't want them to be.
Yes.
So this is all happening on WhatsApp. We had a
brilliant WhatsApp. Really sort of surrealist conversations about song theory.
Yeah, but it was kind of, that's a lot of how we work.
And it's playing as well, isn't it? You're like really letting your imagination just take flight. Like, what could spur as a positive out of that idea?
Totally.
Yeah.
We're going to be going to Stockholm the following week to work with this amazing writer, Tove Berman, who's kind of this really unique, she's almost like this really young Swedish Björk type character, amazing melodic sensibility. And we took the concept to her and she really responded to it. And this was the demo that we came away with.
It's like he always knew who I could turn into. He wanted me and I grew. Now all I do is bloom, bloom, bloom.
So it's kind of quite a folky, really beautiful thing. Felt really special, felt very idiosyncratic, really. But I remember when we were writing it, I was saying, you know, when we do the demo for this, I really wanted to capture that sort of vibe of like Everybody Loves the Sunshine, this Roy Ayers record. And a really good friend of mine who's actually here somewhere today, Jeff Young over there, he is a really good friend of mine, lives close to me, amazing keyboard player, and gave him a call and said, could you help me get this song into this world? And so Jeff, if you could come up and play, would you play? So yeah, unmute it.
He wanted me and I grew. Now all I do is bloom, bloom, bloom.
This was really, so these...
So gorgeous, isn't it?
So gorgeous.
I feel more relaxed, actually. It's made my shoulders go down.
That was kind of the basis that I could then build everything else around, really. Now, at this point, still thought this was for Rihanna, made the demo, sent it to my publisher, never heard anything back. Imposter syndrome tells me, well, the song must be absolute rubbish. What was I thinking? Let's just leave it, kind of thing. And cut to a few weeks later, I was in a session with Sugababes, which was not going great. They weren't really loving the ideas that we'd prepared. This is without...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a horrible atmosphere, actually. When you're playing things and it's just like, nah.
And I texted Anya in the room saying, if this doesn't improve in 3 minutes, I'm playing them weeds. And so that happened.
3 minutes went by.
3 minutes went by, played this song, and the whole atmosphere changed. And immediately they were like, what the hell is that?
Well, credit to them too, because it's not their usual soundscape.
No.
And it was a genius move from everybody concerned to even put those pieces together. I love that.
Well, they somehow, you've got three very strong individual voices there. They all saw themselves in it in some way, shape or form.
That's gorgeous.
And you've got Mutia, who has such a charismatic voice, vocal, but has quite typically a low range. But the funny thing is with Muchia's range is it opens up massively when she loves the song, and she suddenly can...
Look at him, look at me, where the flowers, where the weeds grow. Have you ever seen something so beautiful?
So it all started to take shape, and then they really brought their own... kind of made the record their own in all these amazing vocal layers, and then
it's very luxurious, isn't it? The whole thing feels very decadent in a really lovely way.
Absolutely, it felt like for those reasons it was going to need live streams. So we kind of had this beautiful arrangement and went in and recorded.
I think Rihanna's out there somewhere being like, why did you send these songs to me?
I think that was what was so beautiful about the getting nominated and getting that look. It's one of these songs that we literally just made it because we loved it and actually didn't expect anyone to hear it or listen, really, It was not made with any sort of commercial consideration at all, so it's really nice to get that.
Well, also that's so valid. I think it's lovely to be reminded that when you're in the studio, you can get into your own head a little bit about the expectation of what a song should sound like or what it needs to suffice. But I mean, we know now more than ever that when something resonates, it can spread like wildfire. And we've, with all the usual processes that used to, the people that had to say yes or no to things has been eliminated by the fact you can put something out there and someone go, I love that. So I think what's interesting is firstly writing something just for the gloriousness of creating that soundscape. But also, I was interested when you said that when you sent it off and you didn't get a reply, your first thought was, they don't like it. And it's interesting that even at this point in your career, you can still have that feeling. And what is that like when you pour a part of yourself into something and everybody working on it feels the same, but then it seems to hit a bit of a wall outside the studio? Like, how do you keep your morale intact on those days?
Yeah, I mean, my main tactic of dealing with that is just to show up the next day and carry on, I mean, I think... For me, it's something that's never really gone away. You always feel beholden to someone else's opinion at some point during the process, But I try and manage. I kind of sometimes now I'm better at realizing, that's just my brain doing that thing, So I kind of recognize that sometimes, and then kind of it's like a mind over matter thing, really. But I think I think everyone to a certain extent has some kind of imposter syndrome that kicks in,
Yeah. Well, I think actually that's a really lovely takeaway for everybody that's out there doing this, because I think when you're writing, you're sort of still connecting with that part of yourself that loves music when, and you said since you were 12, you wanted to do this. And it's like part of you goes back to that kernel. So it's nice to know that a good solution is just to show up the next day and keep pushing forward. And I think everybody here would agree. You've been so beautifully generous with your wisdom and your talents. And it's been so lovely to talk to you. And if you do have any other songs that might be for Rihanna, just send them my way first so I can have a little... This might be something, But thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much to Jon for being so generous with us.